I've reviewed more cold plunges than probably anyone on the planet. And if I was building myself the perfect cold plunge today, this is what I'd do. The first thing I would do is I would figure out what size is the average cold plunger, and I would try to make one option that's perfect for almost everybody. But then I would have a second option that's just a little bit bigger for larger cold plungers or tandem cold plunging. And once I figured that out, I would create a tub that was insanely insulated from all sides and all corners. I would make sure that the lid sealed completely tight to keep all bugs and fallout from anything above from entering into the water, because that helps keep the water cooler and it helps keep the water cleaner. I would make sure that the material of that tub was insanely durable so that if one person wanted to move it around, they could. What do you think about that, Goldie girl? What do you think about that? I would also make sure that tub was very easy to drain when it was time to clean, and I would make sure that it was safe for children. So that's the tub. Now let's talk about how we would actually keep the water cold. Because if I was building the perfect cold plunge, I wouldn't want to have to throw ice in every time I needed to cool the water down. I would want to use a continuous water chiller, also known as a water cooler or a chiller. And in my experience, I've made a ton of videos. I would probably just use a 1/4 horsepower active aqua chiller. And the reason the 1/4 horsepower is plenty is because the insulation that I would choose on the tub is going to be so thick that the 1/4 horsepower is going to be more than enough to keep my water cold at 39 degrees continuously without having to be overworked. Now, obviously, some people are going to think that you need a bigger chiller to cool that water down, but in my experience here in Florida, it's pretty hot here. When you have a heavily insulated tub with a sealing lid, you really don't need a bigger chiller. So a 1/4 horsepower active aqua chiller would get my job done. Real quick, before we dive deeper into building what I would consider to be the perfect cold plunge, I have to tell you about something that has become a part of my daily recovery stack. And no, it's not another pill to swallow. This one actually tastes good, though it could be a pill. And you know how most gummies are filled with sugar and junk that you just can't even pronounce? These aren't. These are MitoPure Longevity Gummies by Timeline. They're vegan, sugar-free, and clean label certified. But here's the crazy part. They're clinically proven to change how our bodies age. MitoPure is a pure form of urolithin A, which is a longevity nutrient that our body wants to make, but most of us just can't make enough of it. What does it do? It helps our bodies renew old cells by boosting mitochondrial function. Translation, more cellular energy, better muscle endurance, and faster recovery. And the numbers don't lie. We're talking 12% stronger muscles in 16 weeks and 17% better endurance in just 8 weeks. And that's without changing training. That's wild. Look, I've got 4 kids. I train, I cold plunge, I sauna, and I need my recovery to be dialed in. And these gummies make it so easy to stay consistent because they actually taste like a fruit snack, but with no sugar, no soy, no gluten, and none of the junk. Plus, if you're watching this, you're one of the first people in the world to even know this product exists because it just launched. So if you want to age stronger, recover smarter, and enjoy your supplements instead of choking them down, grab the MitoPure Gummies by Timeline today. I'll drop a link down below so you can check them out after the video. All right, now back to building the dream cold plunge. Well, now we've talked about the tub and we've talked about the chiller. Let's talk about how we would actually keep my water clean. So the best way to keep your water clean is going to be to have a pre-filter. So I would make sure there's a pre-filter right where the water goes in to my pump and my chiller. The pre-filter would be designed to catch the hair, grass, rocks, sand, toys, debris, and even children's fingers from going through the lines. After the water went through the pre-filter, I would have it go through a 20 micron filter. There's a lot of other size filters, but I feel like 20 microns would be the perfect amount to let water flow through and catch any additional dirt and debris that might possibly be floating through my water. Remembering that the goal is not to make the water so pure that I can drink it, but also it's gonna keep my water nice and clean. And if you know me at all, you know I would absolutely have some form of ozone connected. I would make sure that ozone was pumping at night so that it helped to oxidize and clear out any of the bacteria that might have made its way into my water, keeping my water cleaner for a lot longer. So if I was building the perfect cold plunge, it would have to have some ozone. So I told you what I would do for my tub. We talked about the chiller and we talked about the filtration system. Now let's talk about how we would move the water. Well, I would have to choose a super dependable pump. And there's a lot of pumps on the market, and if you search for them, you'll probably see a lot pop up. But in my experience, the one and only pump that hasn't let me down is the Danner pumps. And I personally have no affiliation with them, but I would definitely choose to use a Danner pump at time of recording this video because they have been really, really solid pumps for all of the cold plunges that I've used. So that's probably the pump that I would use. And I would make sure that that pump was powerful enough to pull a lot of water through the system, but I'd also make sure it was very, very efficient. I would probably use a 900 to 1200 gallon per hour pump. And then the last thing I would think about is the connections, but I would make sure that the tubes were thick enough to push enough water through the system, but also short enough that I don't have a lot of areas where condensation can build up making the floor wherever I have my cold plunge wet. And after I built the perfect cold plunge, I would make sure that it was somewhat affordable for most people. I would try to keep the price under $3,500 for everything, so it would allow most anybody to get into cold plunging to experience all the great benefits that I've experienced by getting into cold water. And now the question you're probably wondering, well, David, are you going to build your own cold plunge? And currently the answer is no. I don't really need to, because we got companies like the Desert Plunge that are already doing it. There's a lot of great companies out there doing great work, but it's very easy for me to recommend the Desert Plunge because if I was building the perfect cold plunge, they use pretty much the same components that I would use. And they've been a great company for me to recommend, and a lot of people have really, really enjoyed it. So the real question is this: are you gonna build your own cold plunge, or are you just gonna buy a Desert Plunge? If you choose the Desert Plunge, I will have a link and an exclusive discount code down in the description below for you to use or share with a friend. And if you decide to go the DIY route, please let me know and share your journey with me on Instagram. I would love to see it and cheer you on. So that's what I would do if I was building the perfect cold plunge. I really want to ask you the question, what would you do, or would you do anything differently? Let me know your experience and let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys on the next video, my friends. Have a great day and God bless. And hey, before you go, check out one of these two videos. Earlier I mentioned that I would have an option that fit most every cold plunger, but I would also have a larger option. So I'm gonna include the video on the Desert Plunge Wide, and I'll include the video on the Desert Plunge Exclusive, which is what you see behind me, so you can see a full review and see if it's a cold plunge you might wanna consider for yourself.